And now we're going to bring in a special guest.
Exactly, to discuss the investments in Ukraine, as well as how the situation in Ukraine affects the rest of Europe, especially places like Poland as well. We have Mr. Krzysztof Kulig joining us.
Hello. Hello, thanks for joining us today.
Right, so perhaps let me start. I mean, how did the situation in Poland change following the Russian invasion of Ukraine?
Well, there's, I think, there are very interesting things going on, have been going on for the last 5 years. If you look at the global supply chains and global economy, which we're part of, 20 years ago, everybody wanted to outsource everything to China, and China grew exponentially and then became a massive producer for the world, like 30% of goods produced in China. And then basically since COVID, something has changed. And people start to realize that maybe, just maximizing the profits is not the only thing that we should take into account. And there's been a lot of changes in supply chain. Something which is, offshoring, and then there was the new names introduced like nearshoring, so move a bit closer. Then there was a new term which is called friendshoring. So let's outsource offshore to countries which are friendly to us. And especially that started to be very visible in Europe. Because we had a lot of problems with Russia, a lot of problems with China, and the company started to realize that there are different costs which were sort of hidden in global supply chains, which now we have to take into account. And therefore, Central Europe became a very big benefactor of those factors. And if you look, just to give you an example, if you look at the foreign direct investments in Central Europe, including Poland, they almost doubled as a percentage of GDP over the last few years. So you may say that Poland and Central Europe has become a bit of a benefactor of all what's going on, including the war in Ukraine. Because if you look at what has been going on in Russia and Ukraine, some massive outflows of capital from both Russia and, of course, Ukraine because of the war. And those productions, those companies mostly were looking for a home, somewhere which is close to their home markets in Europe, but also the places that they can take advantage of the lower cost of production, but also what I mentioned, this sort of a friendly environment which Poland and the rest of Central Europe provides. So maybe for the first time in the history, it bits feel like that this time we're a bit on the good side of the border, rather than be on the bad side of the border. And maybe for the first time, being close to Germany is a good thing in our history. But then, of course, that leaves the whole question about how Ukraine can be influenced by that, or how we can help Ukraine in reconstruction. And of course, just watching the material, we're probably far away from investing in Ukraine. We should be more concerned about providing them weapons and artillery. But at some point, that will start, and we'll have to move into it. And we believe that Poland is going to become a hub for helping Ukraine. If you look at Polish infrastructure, we have managed to build a very important infrastructure as a part of European Union. If you look at the warehouses in Poland, we have the third largest network of warehouses after Germany, after Germany, France, and Netherlands. And all of these warehouses were built in the last 10 years. I mean, 50% has been built in the last 5 years in Poland. So there is opportunity to become that hub, and also proximity, not only geographical, but also cultural to Ukraine is going to be very, very important. And I think that if you look at the global companies, international companies, it's very likely that people who will steer and lead those investments in Ukraine are going to be Polish.
Yeah, certainly. I would argue that Poland has already become that hub. If we look at Poland found itself in a very unique situation, both geographically, culturally, ever since the outbreak of this war. Of course, we see here in Warsaw the large amount of Ukrainians who have come here. A lot of them brought capital. I'm sure that's probably another story.
Right.
But Poland is an attractive region, and I know that we can't talk about reconstruction in Ukraine until hostilities are over with. And that's been something that is a bit difficult to understand from Ukrainian authorities, because they want to rebuild right now. But if we look at what's going on in Kharkiv, for example, yes, right, over the last week, I mean, that city already went through a major round of destruction. Now it's going to probably go through another, probably even more significant round of destruction.
It's I had a very interesting conversation with people who manage, there's a private equity fund which raised recently in Ukraine called Horizon Capital. And you might think that there's not good time to invest in private companies in Ukraine, but most of their investments have been in IT, technology companies, which are based in Ukraine, and they're doing quite well. But almost 100% of what they do is export-oriented. Right. And their employees are very mobile. They can move, they just need a bit of electricity and Wi-Fi connection, and they can work everywhere. So those companies actually have been doing quite well. Mm-hmm. And what I also found fascinating is that how the war situation, triggers technological ideas and new concepts. I was told about the application which allows you to drive to the gas station and basically pre-book and prepay your gas. So basically what you do, you limit the time which you spend on the gas station because it's very dangerous. When the moment there's a shell coming in, there's fire, is very dangerous, so you want to limit it. Mm-hmm. The other example was the application which basically showed you all the shelters which are close to you, and on your mobile phone, whenever there's attack, there's an alarm, and then it shows you where you should go and hide. These are all technological innovations which sort of unfortunately came as a result of the war situation, but also shows you that there's incredible potential in Ukraine, especially in people, and there are a lot of engineers, a lot of programmers in Ukraine, and that's maybe should be the first wave of sort of investments, and maybe even private investments into the country.
Right, and that's something that can actually be done right now.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Is that there's still life going on. There's economy going on. The people. Of course, Ukraine has decreased significantly the number of people who live now in Ukraine, but there's still life goes on, and there are needs that need to be fulfilled in Ukraine.
Right, and I sort of was wondering about the housing market, because from what I gathered, the prices of apartments did not fall in Kyiv despite the Russian invasion. So I wonder why. It just seems, sort of counterintuitive for me.
Well, it's there's a funny thread to that. Actually, if you have an apartment on the top floor, and if it's facing east or north, perhaps prices have been affected. So I've heard. Mm.
Well, I'm not expert in real estate, so it's hard for me to comment. I only saw what was happening here in Poland, right. With real estate, both offices and residential. And what I believe the Kyiv thing might be led by the fact that there are a lot of people who flee from eastern part of Ukraine and want to have a place in somewhere which they deem to be safer and
right. Certainly. Well, I was wondering actually about the domestic market here in Poland. I mean, the real estate prices just keep going up, and there's no end in sight. I mean, really, if you say it's a bubble, it just keeps shocking you, and it keeps going up. And with, I think, over 1 million Ukrainians who have moved to Poland and are permanently living here at the moment, that has to artificially as well inflate things, right? Because of supply on the market and...
Well, there's a lot of factors contributing to that, but clearly from investment perspective, residential for sales is one of the best asset classes right now, and the best returns are drawn from that. And looking at the housing gap still in Poland, that, as you're right, I mean, that looks like it's going to continue for some time. And then given the fact that labor is increasing, the materials has increased significantly, it's hard to envision that the price is going to drop anytime soon.
Well, I wonder what happens when the war ends and everybody goes home, right? Poland will be scrambling probably for labor.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that we've been scrambling for labor, right. And I think, of course, the fact that we had, I don't know exact the number, but I think you're right, probably 1 million of Ukrainians came and stayed, but plus there were some people who were here before. So this exact number maybe is not confirmed, but it helped, and Poland is struggling. And this is one of the biggest economic barriers right now, in my opinion, is lack of skilled workforce. And that's something that, of course, if they go back, that's going to be a challenge, absolutely.
Well, this issue, I'm sure, will be with us for quite a while, so we'll definitely have to invite you back. Krzysztof Kulig, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.